So this article came through on the Telegraph yesterday on Education Board. A teacher accused of misgendering a child was told by police that she had committed a hate crime. I mean, there's so much wrong with this sentence, but let's see what they've got. A teacher who was accused of misgendering a child was told by police that she had committed a hate crime. Well, seeing as there's no scientific consensus on gender expression right now, this could go anywhere. The teacher, who claimed they were a grammatical purist, refused to acknowledge that the pupil self-identified as a boy and failed to use the pupil's preferred pronouns of he or him. As it will become clear later in this article, the teacher is perfectly justified in doing this. Despite the age of the child not being stated, I'm going to assume we're talking primary and secondary school age here. It comes after warnings that schools are sowing confusion in child's minds by over promoting transgender issues, and that children are being encouraged to unlearn the difference between boys and girls because it's not like testosterone and estrogen are two completely different chemicals, and that cross culturally different traits have been examined and proven to exist in men and women differently. Susie Green, CEO of Mermaids, a charity which supports transgender children and their families, told how the teacher had laughed in the child's face and said, "If you don't want to be called a girl, then don't look like one." She said that the teacher and school's management ignored 3 months of pleas from the transgender child and their parents and dismissed their requests until she was informed by police that her actions constituted a hate crime. Well, it's ridiculous, isn't it? A little girl who may have believed she was a fire engine last week says she's now a boy. Kids do this all the time, experimenting with boundaries, who is who and what is what. That doesn't mean she's transgender. That means she's a child. This has been going on for 3 months, and the little girl hasn't changed the way she presents herself. She still presents as a little girl. Gender is a spectrum. It runs from masculine to feminine. If someone of biologically female sex presents feminine traits, they are female. You can't get around that. I would have slightly more sympathy if the girl was dressing in male clothes and affecting masculine behaviours. I'd have even more sympathy if the parents had bothered to go out and make sure their child was suffering from gender dysphoria, but there's no mention of that either. The parents and the young person communicated to the teacher directly that they were misgendering, that this was not appropriate, and that they needed to change the way they were addressing the child, Ms. Green said. A child isn't capable of knowing this stuff. To be honest, it comes across very much as if the parents are projecting their desire to virtue signal, as much as possible, that they are caring and progressive ideologues who understand their misunderstood little angel. If someone makes a mistake, that's fine, but this was not a mistake. It was deliberate and consistent. The actual comment from teacher was that they are a grammatical purist. Clearly, the person who wrote this article wasn't, because that sentence structure was appalling. She said that the child was so distressed by the teacher's actions that their mental health suffered, and they took 2 weeks off school with anxiety and depression. Well, I suppose I'd be quite depressed as well if my parents had told me that because I believed that I was a fire engine, and that I had believed that I was a fire engine for a long time, and my parents consistently told me I was a fire engine, that when my teacher told me, "No, you're not a fire engine," I would be quite depressed. The pupil's parents contacted Mermaids, and with their help escalated the matter to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission and the police. Ms. Green said, "We spoke to a member of the police force who contacted the CPS and clarified the position. The CPS said it was a hate crime." The CPS? Are they sure that the CPS didn't tell them they were committing a hate crime by harassing the teacher over a child's fantasy world? The school has since provided additional training for its staff, and the matter was resolved without any further action from police. Oh look, the gender communists are out in force correcting wrongthink again. "We encounter this a lot," Ms. Green said. "When you are dealing with schools, we try to be sensitive to the fact that this may be the first transgender student they have ever dealt with." Under the 2010 Equality Act, it is unlawful for school, again, more of that grammatical purism needed here, to treat pupils less favourably because of gender reassignment. She's not treating the child unfavourably, she's treating the child as a child, with a child's view. Big difference. A pupil will not necessarily be undertaking medical procedure to change their sex in order to be protected by the Act, but must be taking steps to live in the opposite gender, or proposing to do so. Well, that's not suitably vague, is it? But Ms. Green said that many schools do not fully understand their obligations under the Act. Transgender and non-binary children are covered by the gender reassignment clause in this Act from the moment that they disclose that they feel they are in the wrong body for their gender, she said. I wish them all the best in obtaining a correct scientific diagnosis before inflicting legal action on well-meaning teachers. Last year, it emerged that a teacher is suing a school after he faced disciplinary action for referring to a transgender pupil as a girl. Joshua Sutcliffe from Oxford says he was investigated after he said, "Well done, girls," to a group that included a student who identifies as a boy. To a group! That's as bad as saying, "Well done, guys," to a class of multi-genders, or even "well done, people" to a room where one of them may identify as wormkin. This is ridiculous. It completely destroys the social identity of a group. The 27-year-old Christian pastor is now suing the school for constructive dismissal and discrimination. Well, fair play, to be honest. Fair play. More power to him as far as I'm concerned. Good grief.